Hey, what's going on? It is rad, and I have a very special edition of SOFREP Radio for you today. But first, I got to mention to check out our merch store. That's where we have all the things that you can purchase and support the SOFREP community and our programs and keep our lights on and the gas fireplace. It's got to have fuel, so keep that going. I also want to recommend our book club. We have sofrep.com/book-club. And the reason why I want to talk about the book club and mention that is because I'm talking to author Brad Thor today and also former Red Cell member. Welcome to the program. Welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's super exciting to have you. Last time we had you, I think we were talking about Rising Tiger.
Yeah, last summer's book, exactly.
And that's the story of Scot Harvath, who is a former Navy SEAL who's turned counterterrorism hunter, like going after... He just sniffs it out, yeah?
Yeah, that's his deal. He works for a private group, kind of, if you took Triple Canopy or Blackwater and put him in the intel arena, that's what he's doing now, kind of taking contract work from the agency to go out and do some jobs that maybe the federal government doesn't want their fingerprints on.
Mm-hmm. And Triple Canopy, just for my listener may not realize, is a contractor element, and the Triple Canopy is because I think they have Airborne, Special Forces, Ranger, Canopy, Triple Canopy. That's on their arm. So they have those three scrolls, and that equals the Triple Canopy, I think. But someone from Triple Canopy, why don't you correct me down below? Go ahead and comment. Now, let me take my glasses off and zoom in on my what I want to read here. So I'm going to read you about this new book that's coming out to follow Rising Tiger. This is a little excerpt off bradthor.com. Went straight to you, so I say it just right.
Oh, perfect.
This is Dead Again. Right?
Deadfall.
Deadfall, excuse me. There it is. Deadfall. I got it right here on the phone.
There you go.
Okay, Deadfall. And let me just read you this intro, and you can go there. The story. Lethal operative Scot Harvath is dispatched to avenge the killing of American citizens abroad in #1 New York Times and #1 Wall Street Journal bestselling author Brad Thor's new pulse-pounding thriller. In the war-ravaged borderlands of Ukraine, a Russian mercenary unit has gone rogue, its members conscripted from the worst prisons and mental asylums across Russia, as the most criminally violent, psychologically dangerous combatants to ever set foot upon the modern battlefield. With all attention focused on the front lines, they have pushed deeper into the interior to wage a campaign of unspeakable barbarity. As they move from village to village committing horrific war crimes, they meet little resistance because all able-bodied men are off fighting the war. Simultaneously, a team of Russian soldiers has been dispatched by the Kremlin to loot truckloads of art and priceless cultural treasures hidden away in a host of churches, museums, and private homes. When multiple American aid workers are killed, America's top spy, Scot Harvath, is sent in to settle the score. But in a country so vast, will Harvath be able to find the men in question? And more important, will he be able to stop them before they could kill again? I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott. So Scott's going into Ukraine.
Yep. So that's this year's book. It's interesting. Francis Fukuyama said that history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And as I watched the Wagner group recruit in insane asylums and real life, the Russian PMC, as I watched them recruit out of some of the worst prisons in Russia, out of insane asylums, I was reminded of a Nazi SS brigade that went into Poland at the end of World War II from August to October during the Warsaw Uprising. And these guys were horrific. They were targeting field hospitals with flamethrowers, and as Polish soldiers would run out, they'd machine gun them down. They were raping nurses and hanging them on trees outside hospitals alongside the doctors. I mean, some really, really bad stuff. And so I was like, what's going on with Wagner is echoing what some of the worst SS people did at the end of World War II. So I grew up reading like Alistair MacLean. I loved Where Eagles Dare was also a great movie with Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton. And I'd always wanted to take my guy and put him in a European land war, but that would have had to have been completely fabricated until Ukraine happened. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. We don't want a big American footprint over there because then the Russians will say, okay, you are officially part of the war, so my guy gets sent over, and they're like, you know what? We may be able to cobble together a couple guys out of the Ukrainian International Legion that you can form a team with, but you don't get to take any of your team guys from the United States. You are on your own.
So this never existed. This never happened. But you
were never there. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just, and basically you got to sign the contract saying that you're actually joining the International Legion. You'll get the ID, all that kind of stuff. You are going to be part of that, so that if you get captured or killed, we've got plausible deniability back in the United States.
You know, and how you're talking with this book and with what's going on in the world and the symmetry between the actual facts and the fiction that you write with Scott, okay, going after almost the facts, right? It's like with, you know, I don't really like to date my shows, but it's happening, and the Wagner group is like supposedly erased from the earth, is what we're hearing from Putin right now, saying they don't even exist.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, you know, my book comes out July 25th, and a month earlier, it was July 23rd, is when the Wagner group, they sent about 5,000 troops.
Oh, June 23rd. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
June 23rd. So, yeah, it was about 4 weeks ago that they all marched up and got within, I don't know, 200 kilometers of Moscow. There's rumors that they actually took over a base on the way up where there were nuclear weapons. That the Kremlin's denied it. But, you know, all the information we're getting right now, the majority of it's coming out of the Kremlin. We haven't seen Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner group, since June 24th.
He's Belarus, when he went to supposedly Belarus for like, you know, your asylum.
For like 5 hours. And then the head of the president of Belarus said he'd gone back to St. Petersburg. So we have no idea. We've not seen Prigozhin. We haven't seen the head of the Air Force, the Russian Air Force. Yeah, a couple of generals have gone missing, but the head of the Air Force was a close associate of Prigozhin's. So there's a lot of interesting. I don't think we'll ever see Prigozhin again, the head of Wagner. I think the guy's probably room temperature or in a deep, dark, very solitary cell somewhere. But, you know, God forbid he gets near an open window or needs something from a rooftop, because the greatest killer of people in Russia is gravity. If you're not in league with Putin, there's no surer death than death by falling out of an open window or off a rooftop. Really.
I mean, look at he prisons his political adversaries like Navalny, you know, who's in jail and exactly, you know, may still be alive, but is in the gulag.
Yes, so you don't. I'm still surprised when we hear from Navalny. I'm surprised that he's able to get messages out and stuff like that. You would think it would be an absolute and total lockdown,
right,
on particularly political opponents of Putin's. Not bad enough to stick him in jail, but I'm surprised that there is a complete blackout.
Well, there was a band called like Pussy Riot. That
I remember them. Yeah,
yeah, right. And they're out now of the prison. They got out. They were in for 2 years for just like trying to. They said a prayer to stop Putin from going to war, I think, on the stage.
The guy's a freaking monster.
Yeah, so he threw those girls into the jail, and now they're out and they're all over the place, and they're still advocating for freedom.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because a lot of people, and I'm one of them, I'd like to see Putin taken out. I don't care if he goes out on his own accord or if the guy gets an Ides of March. I don't care. But, you know, it's funny when you look at Chavez, when you look at like Mubarak, and sometimes worse things come to replace them. You know, in Egypt, we've got al-Sisi now, who's worse than Mubarak was. Chavez had his issues and actually came out of it stronger because of attempts to push him out. So you've always got to worry what's going to replace these guys. But Putin is he's a bad dude. Really, really bad. And there's a lot of good Russian people. It's a good culture in general. They love the arts. They love ballet. They're very literate. They love to read books. They've produced some incredible authors. And I feel bad. I think the majority of people in China are good, but the CCP sucks.
Right,
you know?
Exactly.
The North Koreans are probably wonderful people. They probably want nothing more than to get rid of the...
just to be free and like to breathe air and like, you know, and eat what they want.
Yeah, bugs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just be real, but they don't know anything because everything they're fed to them, like, media-wise, newspaper-wise, you know, television-wise, radio-wise, is just one network, one channel, same reporter.
Which is a big reason, and they want to keep them in the dark, which is a big reason Putin wanted to take over Ukraine, because he couldn't get a pro-Russian government instilled there. So to have democracy on your doorstep like that is dangerous for an autocrat. You know, the Russians look at their shitty lives and see what's going on in Ukraine and how democracy and freedom is growing there. Not a perfect country by any stretch of the imagination. They're still living under a Soviet-era hangover. There's corruption there. There's no question. But corruption isn't in the Ukrainian DNA. They got the corruption because they were part of the USSR, where corruption ran rampant. So it is a big threat to Putin to have a free and growing democratic state on his doorstep.
Why did he agree to it then? Why did he agree to it, do you think, in the 90s when they said, hey, let's separate the nuclear okay, get rid of your nuclears? Why, why did he agree to that in 93, 94?
Well, Putin's been in power for only 23 years. So this is pre-Putin that this happened. When the USSR broke up and the states started splitting off, Ukraine had a third of the Soviet Union's nuclear arsenal. And we really did not want those nukes in Ukraine. And we said, listen, you've got to dismantle those. We'll help you. And in exchange, the Ukrainians said it's something called the Budapest Memorandum. They said, okay, can you guarantee us if we give up our nukes that we will never lose an inch of territory and will never be invaded? And the United States said, yes, we'll sign on to that. And they said, can you get Russia to sign too? And the Russians signed. And then what happened in 2014, Putin invaded the Donbass and used the little green men, Wagner mercenaries to go do Crimea. And so all we did was they got kicked out of the G8. That's why we have a G7 now. It used to be a G8. So Russia got kicked out. There were a few other sanctions and a harshly worded letter from the Obama administration. So it was very similar to trying to placate Hitler with allowing him to take a slice of Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland. Neville Chamberlain and his colleagues in Parliament, in the Brits,
the U.S. at the time.
Back then there was a thought that would slake Hitler's thirst for conquest, and all it did was embolden him. And that's what we've seen again, history rhyming.
Interesting. It's true. And so do you feel that Russia moved in with their thought that the Ukrainians were just going to say come in and take over?
I think Putin's probably COVID really served to isolate him more and more and more. It's funny. He just did a big public appearance, and I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but there's been all these studies about does Putin have a body double? They look at the earlobes and all that kind of stuff. But when you really see Putin, he's got a dead right arm. I mean, the arm just kind of swings loose at his side, and he does everything with the left hand. And so this thing after the Wagner guys marched towards Moscow, Putin went, I believe, north to do a public appearance to kind of show strength. And he had the right arm, the dead arm, was shaking hands with people in the crowd. And I'm like, I have never seen that. For the last couple of years, I've not seen that right arm work at all. So, there's been all these questions about is Putin sick? And you saw the long tables during COVID where he'd have the meetings.
True.
He was terrified of COVID, and that's allegedly because he was fighting cancer or whatever was going on. So listen, at the end of the day, I think he probably is sick. He is a full-on revanchist. He wants to gather back those territories that used to be inside, if not the USSR, the greater empire, if you will. And I think he's thinking legacy. But anyway, Ukraine's not on the table for him. He doesn't get to invade a sovereign foreign nation and have everybody stand aside and say, yeah, that's okay. Because it's not. We don't want to live in a world where that kind of stuff becomes okay, because it becomes a much more dangerous world for all of us, no matter how far away we are. If there's no international order, any kind of at least basic rules we all agree to, which is we respect territory, we respect borders.
Yeah, exactly. Now with Putin starting this situation, because I feel that it was very unprovocative. It wasn't they didn't provoke it from the he went in to take this over, like you said, under Obama's watch, kind of trickling in there, getting it, blowing up the airliner. I just want to remind my listener that they
the
shot
Dutch
down
KLM flight,
civilian
commercial,
just going home to their parents and stuff. And he's like, stay out of our airspace. He had no remorse for that.
Yeah.